Get appalled at. I'm blacker than Nina and Simone. I just want freedom and want all these people left alone. How in the world is that chapping you? Laughable, you catch an attitude. Glad that you going back.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. So we got to talk about Big E becoming the WWE champion. Big moment, big deal. And, it was a fine moment on top of a rubbish show. The entire show should be tossed in the bin. But this moment was worth it. It was worth the wait. You had throughout the night, you had Big E teasing, going to Randy saying like, this is what I plan to do. Going to MVP telling them this is what I plan to do. And it was so telegraphed that you didn't think it was actually going to happen. Especially since that he basically said it on Twitter like, tonight I plan to cash in the Money in the Bank. And I was thinking like, yeah, right. This is absolute disqualification bait. This feels like he's absolutely going to lose. And he didn't. He fucking won. So Bobby Lashley has a pretty decent to good match with Randy Orton. I think they definitely could have done better. Afterwards, Lashley wins the match with the spear. Afterwards, Lashley decides he's not done. He's going to beat up Riddle. And he's going to spine buster Randy Orton through the table. In doing so, hurts his leg. Now we got Big E running to the ring. Lashley's trying to back off, like, no, I don't want to do this. Then you got Big E smacked him. Like, nah, man up. And then that made Lashley come forward, which, is why the bell rang, So they have the match. Big E chop blocks Lashley. That seemed to be a perfect setup for the finish. Lashley manages to escape. They do a little bit more. Then it's the big ending, the 1, 2, 3. Crowd absolutely ejaculates. Everybody feels fantastic. Twitter erupts. Everybody loves Big E. Right guy, right moment. Look, I could criticize this, and I still think I might, but it was a feel-good moment. It was a great moment at a time where Raw and WWE needed some fresh energy. They needed a fresh moment. And this was perfect for that. I can say that it was too late. And I've seen some people say that it was kind of late. They should have done it at SummerSlam, which I agree. They should have just done Lashley, Big E one-on-one at SummerSlam with the title change. I don't think Big E should have won the title in a situation where Lashley already had wrestled once. Right? I know it's probably, it makes Lashley look like a badass that he was able to go through Randy and Riddle and then injured himself and fought through the injury to almost fight off Big E. Because he ended up hitting Big E with a spear and, Big E kicked out. But to me, it would have been so much better if we'd have had that tension of, this is Big E's one shot, and it was like the big show and it was weeks and weeks of build-up. And that would have been so much better. It felt like it was hot-shotting. So that's like my 2 criticisms. I felt like it should have done it at SummerSlam. And the second is I'm anti-hot-shotting. I absolutely hate hot-shotting. And because it gives you unearned moments. And that's what I feel like this one, it was earned for Big E because it's a guy who probably should have been in the main event 2 or 3 years ago. But for the company, it was completely unearned because they didn't put any story into it. And they didn't even really do a story throughout the night. They just kind of did segments where Big E popped up and was, dangling the Money in the Bank at people. They didn't put in the grind of making Big E look and feel like a threat, like they did with Lashley. Like when Lashley won the title, it wasn't hot shotted. What it was you had the Miz who had cheated to get the title. And then throughout the night, they were showing you that Lashley was pretty much inevitable. The Miz was doing everything he could to try to get out of this match. And Lashley loomed over him like a dark cloud. And it was absolutely, positively the time to switch the title. Because the Miz simply could not push it off anymore. And he was doing his best in doing so. And because in that situation, that was a story. That was the Faustian bargain between the Miz and MVP. I help you win the title, you give Lashley a title shot. That was the deal. In this situation, it was just Big E shows up and wins the title. There was no interaction between him and Lashley beforehand. Lashley's feud with the New Day was already over. So it was like it came completely out of nowhere. And that disconnect right there. It takes something away from it for me. You know, because I'm not a mark for moments. I'm not a mark for individual guys. Tell the story. You know, like if you'd have told the story of Lashley completely decimating Kofi Kingston and beating him to a pulp, and Big E feeling like he needs to avenge his friend and cashing in his money in the bank and saying, you know, we're not going to go out like that. You know, I'm New Day forever. I will come to Raw to fight you. And then say, I will, you know, to avenge my friend, this is what I'm going to do and put my money in the bank on the line. And then maybe Kofi and Woods is like, man, don't do that. You don't need to do that. Don't do that. And then he's like, no, man, we in this together. What he did to y'all, he did it to me. Now I want him to, you know, feel my power. You know, that would have been so much better. But what we got was good. You know, but it was just guy cashes in money in the bank. You know, and to me, that makes me hate the Money in the Bank, you know, because it's like, it's horse shit. It's almost literally the same thing they did with Nikki Cross. They just, oh, hey, go out there and win the title on the Money in the Bank thing. It's like, nah, man, it's unearned, but it's wrestling, and a lot of people are emotional. They feel really good about it, so they can feel good about it, you know. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that look at how much better it could have been. You know, it's like you cook Thanksgiving Day dinner on a Wednesday afternoon. It's like, is it good? Sure. Is it, you know, but you're missing, where's your family? You know, nobody's around. It's just you with this gigantic turkey and all the trimmings and everything. It's like, the food is still good. But part of what makes Thanksgiving is the story around it. You know, who's coming over, who's going to be there, all the individuals that are going to be around, the energy. That's part of what it is. It's not just the meal itself. And that's, to me, that's what it is with this title picture thing. This title switches. It's not just the match itself. It's not just the win and the loss itself. It is everything that comes into it. The storyline going into it. This felt completely unearned. It was Money in the Bank bullshit. But it was good. It was something that they needed. Raw was stale. You know, they had no strong babyface challengers other than Damian Priest. But now I question who are even the heel challengers. Because if Lashley hasn't already beaten them up, then Drew McIntyre's already beaten them up. So you have to ask the question, like, outside of rematches with Lashley, what do Big E really even got? And that's a part of the problem. Okay, maybe you got Karrion Kross, maybe. And Karrion Kross is doing, this is worth talking about. Karrion Kross is doing, he kind of did a little tribute to Sean O'Haire. You know, I think Sean O'Haire was, I think it was like, what was it, 2002, 2003. He's one of the few guys who came over from WCW. He was doing a gimmick called the Devil's Advocate. I think was this before he teamed up with Roddy Piper? I'm not sure. But, it was a very promo heavy character, and it actually had potential, but it ended up bottoming out. I don't remember why. He was one of those guys that I don't really, he wasn't there that long, and I'm not sure why it didn't work out. But apparently Karrion Kross was a real big fan of Sean O'Haire and decided to do some tributes, and that was really cool, you know. But he got to cut this promo about, you know, who is Karrion Kross, what are his motives, and all this kind of stuff. He says, what if I don't know any of that stuff? You know, what if I just know that I like inflicting suffering upon people? And what if I just keep doing that? You know, what if I just keep inflicting suffering on people until I get what I want? You know, everything that I want. And he says, you know, he wants to make people fall and pray, which is good. You know, it was a solid promo. I think that he needs to be a little bit more direct. The problem with Bray Wyatt and the problem with Aleister Black was that the characters were a little wacky in so much as what they were saying as far as the content was good, but it wasn't directed at anybody. It was just like in general. You know, like sometimes Bray Wyatt would come out there and cut these rambling, content-filled promos, but they had nothing to do with his opponent or an opponent or anyone. Had nothing to do with himself. It was just him talking. And Aleister Black was the same thing, where he'd be like in the dark room and he would just be talking and talking and talking. He'd be like, okay, what are you talking about? Who are you talking about? You know? So I want them to, to put him in a feud. But I can see him being pretty much the only guy out there that hasn't been beaten by McIntyre that could potentially, face Big E in the future. And it stands to reason. So you got, Lashley is fallen. If you go back to my video, I did the video on the badass. The badass of Lashley has fallen. So it's time for a new badass to rise. And that seems to be Karrion Kross. Although he lost to Jeff Hardy and he lost to Keith Lee, they seem to be sort of protecting him now. Like, okay, now he's gaining wins. He's being out there. His face is out there. They're cutting promos with him. They're letting him do stuff. They're not just throwing him in rando matches anymore. If they don't have something for him, they're going to put him outside the ring. Okay, cool. As long as they're protecting them, you don't have to be in something super duper hot, because nobody's hot right now. Everybody's doing jobs to everybody. All this 50-50 booking has really just destroyed the roster, if we're being honest. And that's partially why, I guess why Big E had to come over in order to lighten up Raw, because you couldn't do it with anybody who was actually on the brand. And you couldn't do it with anybody on the brand because of the way that they had booked everybody on the brand. I think critics of the NXT system and of WWE's recruiting systems, I think with that crowd reaction and with the way people have fallen in love with Big E over the last several years, man, I think it kind of proves them a little bit wrong. I've kind of been sort of a defender of WWE hiring power lifters instead of indie wrestlers. I've been on that tip for a while. I've also kind of been a defender of the NXT system, which people says doesn't create any stars. I mean, when you look at Big E, he was a guy WWE recruited whole cloth. They recruited him whole cloth. I was about to say raised him, trained them on their own. He stayed in that system the entire time he was there. It took him 9 years or something like that, 10 years. And look at him now. He's at the top of the card. He's the top guy. And he beat another guy WWE brought in and trained, but he went through the OVW system on Bobby Lashley. So, you have a couple of real NXT standouts. NXT's been killing it this year, if we're being honest. When you look at Bianca Belair, a track and field star who had no previous experience wrestling, she main evented WrestleMania. And now you got Big E, who had no previous experience wrestling. He was a power lifter, played football, college football. Now all of a sudden he's the WWE champion. And guess what? Nobody cares that they don't have 10 years of Ring of Honor and PWG experience. Nobody gives a shit. So I think this validates their decision to turn NXT to what they're turning NXT into, which is hopefully a house of athletes who, if they can find personalities and gimmicks and they're willing to put in the effort and the time, they can make it. That's the good stuff about this. This to me is, that's good shit right there, man. Everybody who hates WWE's hiring practices, they just want to hire power lifters and football players. Like, yeah, for the reasons that you just saw on Monday Night Raw, for the reasons that you saw why they hire real athletes. Because if they have any type of personality, they already have an athletic background, they get in the system, they work hard, they bust their ass, they have a good work ethic, they don't have a sense of entitlement, they go in there and they kill it. And when they do it, when it's done right, when it works right, it's excellent. Why argue against it? I know that everybody has the dream. You went to Bubblefuck's wrestling school, and you did your 4-day camp for 2 months, and now you spent all your time in Ring of Honor and PWG. You deserve to be the WWE champion, but you have not a lick of personality to speak of, and you got, bad knees and a bad back because you've been doing flips for 10 fucking years already. Sure, you may deserve it too if you can manage to find a personality underneath all that shit. But some of these people are pure athletes, and they get denigrated. They get shit on by the wrestling fan for not being quote unquote wrestlers. You're not a wrestler. You're a power lifter. And I think Big E, that's the big win for WWE right here, is they've shown that they can just make their own stars, man. Like every time it's somebody who doesn't have an extensive career on the independents, who really gets this huge reaction that everybody really is all in on them. I've seen Big E's peers, people who don't even work there. Like I saw, the dudes from FTR talking about how proud he is of Big E. People who barely even watch the show anymore, really proud of Big E. And that's the good stuff, man. That's more important than any criticisms that I may have towards this moment. What's better is that it validates everybody who believed in him, the system that created him. Well, I'm talking about created the opportunity, not created him, but created the opportunity. And that it works, when you're the right guy in the right place at the right time, with the right attitude, with the right work ethic, you're the man, So I love this. I love it. I am big thumbs up. Big thumbs up on this. The best shit on the show. Best thing Raw has done in weeks. It was definitely needed. But this was a hell of a moment. Big E winning the title really, really, really jazzed this crowd up. And it made people forget that the show was actually pretty lousy. Just going to hit some highlights for the show because I really don't want to talk about Raw. It was hard to sit through. We got the Charlie doll. Now, we got the Charlie doll because people keep buying these damn Lily dolls. So now we got to have a Charlie doll. The Charlie doll was a gift from Alexa Bliss to Charlotte. This was I think it was the first time they had gotten physical in their little feud. Charlotte's mini feud with Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax apparently is over. The match was entirely too long. That can be said for most of the matches on this show. There was too many matches on this show, and the matches were too long. Like you got to find something better. Like we didn't learn anything about too many characters on this show, which I think would have been a better way of using pretty much everybody on this show. Would have been to somehow forward the characters so that people can become attached to them rather than just throwing matches out there. But the Charlie doll was absolutely absurd. It's always absurd. And it was the little robe and the little belt did kind of make me chuckle. I'm not going to lie. I saw it. I was disgusted. The chiclet teeth. But then I saw the little robe and the little title. I was like, oh, come on. And the wig. It was ridiculous. And I think they're selling them joints for $40 now. So there you go. You got to give the people what they want. Damian Priest versus Jeff Hardy. That match was actually pretty good. Jeff looked a little slower than usual. I don't think he's used to working matches this long anymore. Damian Priest had a pretty cool spot where he did like a springboard leg lariat, which is pretty dope. Sheamus was on commentary, being really, really, really obnoxious. Talking about me gold. He took me gold from me. I'm the real United States champion. But Jeff Hardy in this spot is good. Of course, we would like to see Jeff do better all the time, but he's not as beat up as Matt and not as busted up as Matt. But it's clear Jeff's age is showing a little bit. I think if he, was regularly in higher level matches and higher level feuds, he'd probably be better off. But this was good. This was good for Damian Priest. He got to wrestle one of his heroes, somebody he looked up to, which is good. It didn't make him seem too much like a fanboy, even though it kind of did. But that was really the only good thing on the show was Big E winning the title, Damian Priest versus Jeff Hardy, the Charlie doll. But the show itself was look at this card. You mean this on getting your spurs jingling and jangling? Nikki Ash versus Tamina. That didn't get your spurs jingling and jangling? Get the fuck out of here with that. For starters, well, I guess I should talk about this match. Not because the match is worth talking about, but because apparently Tamina was supposed to win this match. Because after the Tornado DDT, Nikki Ash pins Tamina. Tamina actually kicked out the referee, counted 3 anyway. They played Tamina's theme song, and Greg Hamilton announced Tamina as the winner when Nikki Cross clearly won the match. Everybody was confused. Corey Graves did a really good job of covering for it, you know. Amos rules. He continues to rule. You know, he won his match. They did a good job of protecting him and not showing too much. I still would have liked for Amos to be, maybe Amos could be the guy that could take the belt from Big E. How about that? You could have 3 straight black champions. So that's good. And you had Doudrop defeating Eva Marie. Eva Marie is completely miscast in this spot. The match was a comedy match because Eva Marie was trying to strike and roll up Doudrop. It was completely stupid. They should have done where Eva Marie brought out somebody else and had somebody else wrestle on her behalf, or somebody interfere on her behalf or something. They're lazy. They don't want to think. They decided to just... So now what's next for Doudrop is the question. You know? And of course you got to ask... Look, I don't care about these women tag team titles, but what the fuck are you going to do with it? Really, like you went through the trouble now to build these titles, and now the champions have lost in every iteration to 2 different teams. But the other team is on SmackDown, and you're not doing anything with them. It's like Tegan Nox and Shotzi have already beaten Natalya and Tamina in singles matches and in tag team matches on multiple occasions, and they don't get a title shot. But it seems pretty clear that Nikki and Rhea are going to get title shots. It's stupid. You know, and now they threatened us with this Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax match, which nobody on earth was ever looking forward to. Why would you ever do that to the American public? That's about as bad as Tony Khan, who tells us, guess who's wrestling tonight? Shawn Spears. It's like, man, fuck you. All right? You know, you think I just got time in my life to waste, to give up, to turn over to you and your cosplay wrestling garbage? But Raw is 3 hours of rubbish. I'm glad Big E won, because it at least something fresh to talk about, something new to talk about, something that at least gives some energy to the show. We'll see how long it lasts. This is the problem with hot shotting. Hot shotting doesn't last. People got their fill, but you didn't leave them with a hook for next week. So it was just basically, here's the big pot of gold right now. There's no reason for you to come back next week because we gave you everything. Like, there's nobody waiting in the wings. They didn't do a mysterious man is watching Big E from the shadows or something like that to say, so you could be like, hey, what was going on next week? Nothing like that. It was just Big E wins. Orton got put through a table and Riddle got his head smashed against the wall, against the ring post. All these baby faces dead outside the ring. But hey, be happy Big E is the WWE champion. It was a great moment. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, donate to the channel. Thank you guys for your time, and I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.
Tell me what's worse than learning all that you led to believe was all horse crap. They distort, so question as